Reuniclus is a very interesting little jello fetus. So it's essentially a slow attacker with a strong base 125 special, and honestly not horrible bulk when you consider its base 110 HP. It's also got a unique situation where it has 3 solid ability options in Overcoat, which makes it immune to powder moves like Sleep Powder, Regenerator, which allows it to heal a third of its HP every time it switches out, or finally Magic Guard. With this, Reuniclus only takes damage from direct attacks, meaning it cannot be hurt by things like poison or entry hazards. With this, we can toss on a Life Orb and enjoy the 30% damage boost without taking the recoil every turn. But first, we're going to get up some Psychic Terrain, and then when we bring in the Jelly, it's time to set up Calm Mind. Now with the terrain up, Expanding Force is 120 power Psychic Stab Nuke, and then we've got coverage in things like Shadow Ball along with Focus Blast. It could potentially set up its own Trick Room if you're into being speedy, but Fairy Terra allows us to take hits defensively. And look, Reuniclus can get pretty out of hand if not dealt with, so today we're going to try to get it to pop off. Sorry to be the one to break it to you, but we were all lied to in school. The powerhouse of the cell is actually in fact Reuniclus. Ever since this thing was released in Gen 5, I've always just thought it was really cool, but you don't really see it around all that much. And today we're going to show the little jelly some love. If you're into that kind of thing, you should consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm on my way to 400k, that is my goal for the year, and you could help me out. Now with that, let's go ahead and jump into the match. Alright, so my opponent is going to go ahead and lead off with the Corviknight. Big metal bird, scary, but I've got one bulbous fella that is honestly looking not impressed. But I'm here to set up some Stealth Rock and just glisten in the sun with my shiny poopy skin. So Clodsire is not really afraid of Corviknight, but on the other hand, I can't really touch this thing at all. But at least I can set up my Stealth Rock, which is always fun. Wrong. They actually end up going for the Taunt, which is not ideal. Not going to allow me to set up my Stealth Rock, which is kind of fine, but for the most part now, I just can't do anything versus Corviknight. So I decide, I feel like I want to try to get Reuniclus going. And one way we need to do that is to set up the Psychic Terrain. So knowing that they probably are going to swap out themselves, I decided to switch into Indeedee. It is time to bring out the croissant ears and the thick hips, and we are going to also spill some grape juice all over the place. Psychic Surge should be pretty useful. The problem is they end up going for the U-turn. Super effective hit, does do a nice little chunk to Indeedee, and now as they can switch into whatever they want, they decide to bring in everybody's least favorite blue freaking flower. So in comes Glamora. It also does not take Stealth Rock Chip, of course, meaning it probably has a Focus Sash intact. And there's a couple different ways this could go. First of all, I could go for the Expanding Force, knock it down to its Sash, and then, you know, enjoy some damage. But I decide instead, I'm going to go ahead and unalive myself. It obviously is just going to knock myself out, and there's going to be a pending, you know, heal in the back for whatever wants to switch in later and has damage. But they actually just go for the Stealth Rock. I figured it was kind of like I could hard swap into Reuniclus, but I don't want to take any unnecessary damage. And I really feel like Reuni has a nice little position here to honestly get the huge momentum in this match and potentially just get a nice little sweep going. So now I can bring in the Reuniclus for free. And as they set up the Stealth Rock, I come in, I obviously don't take any damage. And now it's time to go for some Calm Minds. Now this is a perfect option to set up against because knowing that they can only really hit me on the special side, Reuniclus can really thrive if you're able to set up Calm Minds in the face of something that can't really hurt you. So they actually don't really see the Reuni as a threat, which is always your first problem. The little jelly is a damn monster. So I get up a Calm Mind, which is great. And then I realize, you know, there's nothing really stopping me from going for another Calm Mind. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Going to try to get myself up to +2 special and on the defensive side as well, which is always nice. But they're going to end up bringing in Corviknight. So the thing about Corviknight is, obviously we know that it has Taunt. They probably want to taunt me. But honestly, with 2 Calm Minds set up for free, needless to say, the mind is looking calm as hell out here, and it's time to start throwing some forces at stuff. So, Expanding Force is, of course, not very effective. Here's the thing, though. They go for the Taunt, which is, I obviously am not going to Calm Mind anymore. I feel like I don't really need it. And also, with that terrain setup, 120 power Expanding Force before stab knocks out a defensive Corviknight in one hit. The not very effective one-hit KO on a Mon that you never see die that easily is extremely satisfying. So while we do get taunted, we take care of the Corv, which is a huge win. And now we get to see what their answer is going to be. So while I don't have Trick Room on this set, they are going to be able to outspeed me with whatever they got. And as they bring in the Electivire, they want to hit me on the physical side, of course. And as they go for the knockoff, does get rid of my Life Orb, which is fine because we're able to live. And then we can fire off another Expanding Force. And there's no shot this friggin' Electric Yeti is going to be able to take that. So that's going to be a dead Electivire. And while we did, you know, get a whole bunch of damage on us, I feel like we could still be able to take an attack on the special side. So as they decide to end up bringing back in the Glimmora, they're probably thinking, you know, this is fine. I can just outspeed, fire off a little stab attack and do some damage and be on my merry way. Problem for them is the Jelly is not going to go down that easy. They go for the Sludge Wave, probably their best damage option, and with the +2 Calm Minds, we're able to live, fire off the Expanding Force, and that is going to be one dead-ass Glimmora. And also, Buddy probably threw a switch at the wall or just turned it off. He has seen enough of what the little Jelly is made of. So that was honestly pretty satisfying. With what they had in the back, they probably could have came in, outsped me, and killed it, but they were done. So that's, you know, always hilarious. So that is now going to bring us into our next match, because of course that was an unsatisfying way, you know, for it to end. While we did get to tear some stuff up, we now have another really good game here, and Reuniclus is kind of an absolute unit. Also, I refuse to pronounce this thing's name how it's supposed to be. I honestly didn't realize this was actually how it is until I made this video.
Reuniclus, let's go!
Reuniclus sounds damn ridiculous, but also, hey, if you've stuck around this far into the video, go ahead and do me a favor, hit the like button. It really does help out the channel. And with that, let's get into the next match. So this time my opponent is going to go ahead and lead off with Legs, who is mostly Legs. Now I lead off with Body. I'm mostly Body. Kind of opposite guys over here. But Clodsire is here to set up Stealth Rock. Now the bad thing about Araquanid is it's going to probably set up the Sticky Web, which we don't really care about in terms of things being fast on this squad, so it's fine. Instead of going for that, they decide to actually swap. They're going to end up bringing in the Tentacruel instead, and as I go for that Stealth Rock, I figure Squidward Tentacles over here is probably just here to go for a Rapid Spin. And while I do have coverage with an Earthquake, this really isn't a bad matchup for me. This thing can't really do much to me in terms of damage, and I just have all the initiative with an Earthquake. So I'm going to fire off the Quake in hopes that they do not go for a Terra. While they do Rapid Spin, they do not go for the Terra. I was kind of thinking maybe there'd be a Flying Terra coming my way, but it's probably also a bit early for that. So the Rapid Spin gets rid of the rocks, but at the cost of me being able to nearly knock it out with one hit on the Earthquake, which always feels great. So, you know, they can get another Rapid Spin off, but I'm like, I'm just going to Stealth Rock again. If that's what they want to do, this is kind of a matchup that I'm not super worried about. So while they do go for the Ice Beam, it probably figured that maybe be close to a 2-hit KO. Clodsire, too damn thick. This thing literally just does not care. I am able to take a couple of them, and as I set up my Stealth Rock again, I'm like, you can Rapid Spin if you want, buddy. I'm going to proceed to go for some Quakes. I'm munching on some Black Sludge, which sounds gross, but Clodsire enjoys it, and we're going to be pretty healthy regardless. So they are going to go for another Rapid Spin, and that's, I mean, they really do not want the rocks up. There must be something that Buddy's holding on to back there that does not want the rocks up. So I fire off another Quake. That takes care of the Tentacruel, which is sweet, and that's gonna be out of there. So I mean, now they don't have the Rapid Spinner. I can potentially set my rocks back up if need be, and Mr. Hanky's having a nice little time over here, just, you know, drying out in the sun and just enjoying some Black Sludge. So now as they can revenge switch into whatever they like, they decide to go Skarmory. And this is a fella that, you know, is probably going to set up rocks of their own. And I'm like, if that's what it is, I'm gonna do the same. Guess what, buddy? I'm going for my rock. So it turns out they're gonna pull out the Drill Run, not the most common coverage you see on Skarmory. And as I set up my Stealth Rock again, I'm taking Drill Runs easily. Clodsire, even if this thing is Adamant Max Attack, which it actually looks like that damage is, it only does like 40%, not even. So that's really nice. And Clodsire, while I can sit here all day, I actually cannot do anything to Skarmory. I have a problem with freaking metal flying birds out here with the Mr. Hanky. So I decide I'm going to swap out, and it feels like a pretty good time to bring in the freaking Croissant Ears. We go into the Indeedee just because I want to get that Psychic Surge up. There's purple drink all over the damn place, and we're going to have to deal with it being sticky. So as they go for a Roost, their HP is full, which is fine, which now it actually puts me in a position where I can go for an Encore. I'm like, hey, that Roost with full HP was pretty nice. I'm going to need you to do that once more. So I Encore them, they're stuck into Roost, and that is really nice, because now I know surely they're not going to stay in here and continue to just Roost at full HP, so I can, in fact, go for a swap of my own. Now, instead of going for the Healing Wish, I decide to swap just directly into the Reuniclus in hopes that they also end up switching into something that wants to hit on the special side. So the little jelly is coming out. We were trying to take advantage of the Psychic Terrain turns, obviously, and it's a bright new day to be a freaking weird fetus jelly. So they, of course, swap as well. We've got ourselves a little double switch situation, and they're going to end up bringing in friggin' Snoop Dogg. In comes Haydunn, who does take considerable chip from the Stealth Rock, which is always nice. But while this thing is obviously going to hit me on the special side, it's not ideal. I don't really want to take a Dark Pulse. So it feels like a good time as any to pull out the Terra Fairy, which is going to be allowing me to take a Dark Pulse with literally no damage. And then I set up Calm Minds, and then Reuniclus is out of hand. Honestly, Fairy Terra looks really good pretty much against their entire team here. So I put the heart on my head. We're looking adorable, wanting a hug, and while I feel like I was going to get up some free Calm Minds, instead, no. They actually go for the taunt, which is a good move. Taunting Reuniclus is definitely one way to get around this thing being an asshole. So while I cannot Calm Mind, what I can do is go for a Focus Blast. In hopes that it doesn't miss, it will do a lot to a Haydunn, which is always great, but they actually end up swapping. They're going to go into the Skarmory here. It does take some Stealth Rock, which is nice, and I, of course, missed the Focus Blast, which is, I mean, if it's going to miss, it's fine against the Skarmory because Expanding Force boosted by Life Orb, Stab, and Psychic Terrain does a lot, and I'm really feeling like we're going to get a huge chunk regardless. So they're going to go for the little layer of spikes. They set up some spikes, which is fine. I hit him with the Expanding Force, and consider his ass expanded. That actually just knocks out the Skarmory. Tells me that thing was not invested. It was probably just speed and attack, but it sets up spikes. So confusing ass Skarmory, regardless. Reuniclus grabs a clean little one-hit KO. We're just killing steel birds like it's our damn job out here. So now they're going to end up bringing in the Araquanid. So this thing can, of course, take an attack and hit me on the physical side. But instead, they feel like Reuniclus without Calm Minds is not a threat. They're going to go for the Sticky Web instead. And now they have to take a big ol' Expanding Force. And without any setup, that still is going to be an easy 2-hit KO on a one that's pretty bulky on the special side. So I'm going to decide to finish it off with one more and just be on my merry way. And at this point, they decide to go for the Soak, which is a really actually an interesting move. It fails because I'm actually Terra'd, which I had no idea that was a thing. Now, Soak is a move that is used to turn me into a water type, but it doesn't work on a Terra'd mon, which honestly I had no idea about, and that actually would have been a pretty sick play had it been able to turn me into water. But it doesn't work out for him, and his ass is soaking in hell. Now they can do their best to bring in an attacker of the physical variety. In comes the Crocodile, who, you know, does obviously hit pretty hard on the physical side, but I should be able to take at least one attack. And also run myself a chance to hit a Focus Blast, which is always fun. So as they go for the Earthquake, does less than half, because that HP investment on this thing actually goes kind of crazy. And with that, I also connect on a Focus Blast, which is pretty damn impressive. So the Reuni is once again going on a tear, and looking adorable in the process. Now, as they decide to bring in Houndoom, this is a fella that's, you know, at half HP, and I don't have any Calm Minds. However, they can, you know, try themselves a nice little Flamethrower, see how much they can get. Luckily, with the Terra, they can't Dark Pulse. We do live it, and we connect on another Focus Blast. They're probably like, you know, surely they don't hit 2 Focus Blasts in a row, which, to be fair, I didn't really expect either. And honestly, I feel like I've been using up my luck these past couple matches to where I'm kind of screwed for the future. But that's fine, because that takes care of the Houndoom, which is sick. And now the final Mon is going to be the Hitmonchan. So Monchan sadly can go for a Bullet Punch. They popped me with the super effective priority, which would have been hilarious had my terrain still been up because it blocks priority. But that is going to end up taking care of the Reuniclus, which is fine because, you know, the damage has been done. We've actually tore through the squad, and now I can go into whatever we feel like to finish off the game, which ends up feeling like it's got to be the partner in crime. I'm just going to go right back into Indeedee. And the funny part would be if this thing was choice banded for some reason, they couldn't even do anything for pretty much the remainder of the match because of, you know, Psychic Terrain being up. But we get caught up in some Sticky Web, which doesn't really matter, and we do get up that Surge once again. So now I can just go ahead and fire off a little Expanding Force, and they actually are not going to Terra. That's going to end up taking care of the Monchan, which is sweet, and that's going to be the end of the match. So thought that was just a ridiculous one. Reuniclus is, while it does have its struggles, it can find matches where it really does kind of go crazy. Plus, it's just a cool guy in general. I always for some reason like this thing. It's a fun concept, and that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. The support has been insane. And as always, if you have any ideas on specific mons or sets that you'd like me to showcase that I haven't already used, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And I've used a lot at this point, but there's still so much to uncover. And on that note, I will see you later. Peace out.